So, get this. The year is 711 AD. A tiny invading force, just a few thousand guys, lands on the coast of Europe and, like a lightning strike, brings an entire kingdom to its knees. This one event would go on to reshape a continent for the next 800 years. So the big question is, how on earth did that happen? Well, our story really kicks off with these chilling words from the commander, Tarik ibn Ziyad. He's standing on the shores of what we now call Gibraltar, and he tells his men, "O people, where can you possibly run? The sea is behind you, and the enemy is in front." You see, he's just made a decision that changes everything. There's no turning back. Because while he's saying this, the very ships that carried his 7,000 soldiers across the strait are going up in flames, lighting up the sky. And no, this was not an accident. This was a calculated, absolutely brutal move of psychological warfare ordered by Tarik himself. He just completely destroyed any possibility of retreat. And you really have to appreciate this. This wasn't some act of madness. It was a masterstroke of strategy. By burning the ships, Tarik forced every single one of his soldiers into a state of absolute commitment. What was a pretty shaky invasion just a minute ago has now become an all-or-nothing fight for conquest. It's simple. They either win or they die right here. But to really get why this crazy gamble actually worked, we have to look at who they were up against. The Visigothic kingdom in Hispania. Well, it wasn't exactly a mighty empire. It was more like a dying giant, basically rotting from the inside out. The whole kingdom was being torn to shreds by a perfect storm of disasters. I mean, you had prolonged droughts from climate change, which led to horrible famines. Then the bubonic plague starts sweeping through the cities. And as if that wasn't enough, the whole place is ripping itself apart in a bitter civil war over the throne. Plus, the rulers were brutally persecuting the Jewish population, creating a whole community inside their borders that had every reason to want to see them fall. The place was just on the verge of total collapse. Now, on the flip side, you have the invaders, and the contrast is just incredible. These guys weren't just some random band of raiders. They were the elite force of the Umayyad Caliphate, an organization that honestly operated less like an old kingdom and more like a super aggressive hypergrowth startup with its headquarters in Damascus. So let's kind of break down their business model. First, they were masters of aggressive scaling. They could quickly absorb local tribes like the Berbers into their army. They also practiced a radical meritocracy. It didn't matter who your father was. Leaders were picked based on pure skill. They were smart about strategic alliances too, working with insiders like a Visigothic count named Julian, who literally helped them get across the street. And they were culturally adaptable, often using religious tolerance to keep newly conquered people from rebelling. And Tarik himself, he was the star product of this whole system. He was a former slave, a Berber, who climbed all the way to the rank of general based on sheer talent. He was the living, breathing proof that this relentless, merit-based machine worked. Okay, so all of this comes to a head in July of 711. At the Battle of Guadalete, these two totally different worlds, the dying giant and the agile startup, they finally slam into each other. And you could see the difference right there on the battlefield. On one side, you've got the Visigothic warrior. He's weighed down by heavy iron chainmail in the blazing summer heat, and his whole strategy is about the frontal charge and the big shield wall. On the other side, you've got the Berber warrior. Light linen tunics, leather shields, and tactics based on speed, harassing with javelins and flanking their enemy. This wasn't just a battle, it was a clash of philosophies, heavy tradition versus lightweight innovation. And, nothing says it all better than how the leaders showed up. The Visigothic King Rodrigo didn't ride a war horse into battle. No, he was carried onto the field on a ridiculously extravagant ivory litter. It's the perfect symbol of the massive disconnect between the rulers and their starving conscripted soldiers. So the battle starts, and Tarik's light cavalry just keeps harassing the Visigothic lines, poking and prodding, wearing them down. But the real turning point, it came from inside the Gothic army itself. The flanks of Rodrigo's army, commanded by guys loyal to the sons of the king he had overthrown, they just turned around and left the battlefield, a fatal act of betrayal in their own civil war. This left Rodrigo's center completely exposed. Panic set in, and the whole thing just collapsed. What started as an ordered battle turned into an absolute slaughter in the marshes, and King Rodrigo, he just vanished in the chaos. His body was never found. The only thing left behind was his horse and a single fancy golden boot stuck in the mud. I mean, what a pathetic end for a king and a kingdom that had completely lost its way. But that victory at Guadalete wasn't the end of the story, not even close. It was the explosive beginning of a whole new chapter for the Iberian Peninsula, a legacy that was literally ignited by the fire from those burning ships. Tarik didn't waste a second. He pushed his army north to the capital, Toledo, and there he captured the kingdom's most mystical treasure, the legendary Table of Solomon. This thing was said to hold all the knowledge of the universe, so it was way more than just loot. Capturing it was a symbol that power, the divine right to rule, had officially been transferred from the Goths to the new guys in charge. 800. Just let that number sink in for a second. That's how many years the new civilization born from this single conquest would last. That fire from the ships in 711 didn't just burn wood. It sparked a new world called Al-Andalus, and it would go on to shape the culture, science, and soul of the region for nearly a millennium. And this new era brought a total revolution. Sophisticated irrigation and new crops completely transformed farming. Cities like Cordoba became global hubs for science and learning, preserving all this ancient Greek knowledge that was pretty much lost to the rest of Europe at the time. And of course, architectural masterpieces like the Great Mosque of Cordoba left a physical and cultural mark you can still see today. But what happened to Tarik, the man who started it all? Well, in a pretty tragic twist of irony, his incredible success made him a political threat back home. He was summoned back to Damascus by the Caliph, and then, poof, he's gone. The brilliant general who conquered a kingdom, the man who burned his own ships, just vanishes from history. And yet, his name is literally carved into the landscape, right at the spot where this impossible journey began. The name Gibraltar. It's just a modern version of the Arabic Jabal Tarik, which means the Mountain of Tarik, a permanent monument to his incredible audacity. And all of this leaves us with one final lingering thought. What is truly won when you burn the ships? Carrick's story is an amazing piece of history, for sure, but it also speaks to this universal choice, one that echoes today in business, in art, and even in our own lives.
Thanks for watching the video. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment with any topic you'd like us to talk about in future videos, and don't forget to hit the like button.